There we go. I got a
Yay.
new wireless router that I configured and installed, but it means my IP changed, so the binding in OBS went sideways. So I had to go reset the binding. But at least I knew what the problem was. We got it so quick, I didn't even stop recording audio. Oh shit. I think I accidentally closed out of the playlist.
Yikes.
If you are listening on not YouTube, you're getting a real treat right now, because once we start recording, we don't stop.
That's right.
Actually, wait, it's on YouTube now too. Shit. And welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Football, where we don't stop recording after we start. We don't edit anything, and where we'll find plenty of beer, but none of it's Corona. I am your host at Hot BFF with 2 Ps, coming to you from the place where I spend now most of my time under lockdown, St. Louis, Missouri, in my home office, joined by Dan Thury.
Who is not in a home office, who is still providing non-essential needs to all ages above 21 to get them through this interesting time in history.
Yeah, his non-essential needs are alcohol, by the way.
Yes,
so
I mean, we love alcohol.
So some
we don't need alcohol to survive.
Yeah, some may consider it essential. But hey, we're here to not talk about all that, to not think about the world and everything that's going on outside of this. We're here to talk football. We're here to talk the NFL. We're here to talk free agency in a world without sports. Everything that's changed, everything that's gone down. We got a little fun for you in the shit scene on Twitter segment, and we got some beer for you as well. Before we get started on that, though, social media, you can follow us at Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. You can follow us at Beerfield FF on Twitter. I am at Hot BFF with 2 Ps on Twitter. He is at Thury BFF with 2 Fs. Also on Twitter, we have an Instagram and an Untapped and a Facebook. Those don't really get touched, but if you can find us, more power to you. I really probably should touch Untapped more since we're a beer show, but I suck at
it. It happens.
All right, so programming note real quick with the NFL draft coming up. As everybody knows, we do a draft live stream episode for round 1. Barring the NFL moving that, which I've already said they're not going to, they're just canceling the festivities, or that not being broadcast somewhere, as of right now, that is still going to happen. So, if you're a listener, if you like hanging out with us, which if you're listening, you're a listener, and I hope you like hanging out with us, we will be available during round 1 of the NFL draft to drink with you, share some thoughts, answer some questions. Usually gets a little wild, but obviously all of that is subject to change as borders and things might close down. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We tend to save some of the fancier beers for this, and by about pick 20, we're a little toasty.
We're just
we
picking
got
up
questions rolling in though
already.
Yeah, Colton, longtime listener, longtime supporter, and a true apologist to us as a show here.
Yeah.
Quick question, boys. I'm at work. Shout out to you and still working in this time of craziness. Keenan Allen, should I sell him in Dynasty? If so, what kind of picks do you think I could get for him?
Man, that's an interesting question because the Chargers have come out and said they're not going to sign a veteran quarterback. Now, what that doesn't mean is that they won't go run after somebody in the draft. Now, that being said, Tyrod Taylor is not going to throw as many times as Phillip Rivers did. Also, however, it was Tyrod Taylor that was quarterbacking for Sammy Watkins during his productive years in Buffalo. So, I think you could. I don't think that the stock is necessarily going to be through the roof, but if you really don't believe in Keenan Allen, I think you can probably sell him for You're not going to get primo picks, but I mean, you could probably go for a mid to late first plus, I would imagine.
I mean, what the issue with Keenan Allen is that he's been at such a popular sell this offseason. Everyone knew Rivers was leaving. He's 27, 28
so
years old, so
still
he's
young. He's reaching peak, but
he's reaching the beginning of the twilight years for dynasty purposes. You generally you want to get out of those players before their age 30 season. They kind of get out of that potential drop off. Allen's skills should allow him to to be productive throughout that. But he still needs to be in the right offense with with the right quarterback and scheme and situation for him to be productive. If I'm going to trade him, I want a first, mid first to be what I'm looking at. I would target a team who's in need of receiver ready talent now. Think of Buffalo and Diggs and try to pry out a decent deal out of them for that. The best time to probably trade them is maybe during the draft when someone the problem with that is that if people fall in love with these rookies, it might be a little harder to pry out of that. But if you're trying to sell them now, I mean, we're all in that same window anyway. So it's I would like a mid first.
The stock's not going to be good, so you're going to try to get a mid first if you can get plus on top of that, like a late round draft pick or maybe a player that hasn't panned out yet that you still believe in. Then go for that. I'd probably start there, but be okay with just taking the mid first. So,
or you do what it's always a good idea to try to mask sell or buy lows or sell lows for people is to pair them up with another pick or player and to
try to package it.
Improve better. You won't feel the top 5 pick. It might be even harder to get a mid pick depending on your league, but
I would say probably 6 to 10 on a 12 team is a sweet spot there. All right.
Other question.
I'll let you read Darren. That one. That's a lot.
What's that?
I'll let you read that one.
Okay, okay. It's from Darren again. Just like a long-time listener, long-time supporter of the show, and question asker.
Okay.
His question is: okay, CMC or Jacobs, the 102 and the 2021 first, or Mixon and the 105 and the 106. I have the 104, but I need a QB pretty bad. I have Trubisky, Rivers, and Big Ben. It's the 10-team Superflex tight end premium league. So it looks like he's either going to get CMC and Josh Jacobs on top of the 102 and the 2021 first. Or would you give up Mixon, the 105 and the 106? I mean, if I can get CMC, the 102 and the 2021 first for Mixon, the 105 and the 106, that's got to be the pick, right?
Yeah, no, that seems leaning that way, and with either one of those guys too, as we've seen with running backs, and we'll get to this in a bit. CMC right now is pinnacle CMC. Ride that out for 2 to 3 years while you can. Jacobs obviously just coming into his own. The 102 is going to be the sweet spot to. Well, let me ask you this though: it's super flex.
Sure.
If you're picking at 102 or you're trading for the 102, you're kind of banking on Burrow not going 101 there. And if he does, then, I'm not so sold that you can't get to a 104.
Well, he has a 104 regardless of whatever he does.
That's what I'm saying. So either way, I think that I would still rather have CMC or Jacobs over Mixon anyway. So I'm still on that side of it.
Because for me personally, I'm getting the best running back in football. Generally in a super flex league, your top 2 picks is going to be Burrow and Tua. You still have the 104, which means you're still going to get either Taylor or Swift. You pray that someone gets cute and takes Dobbins, or gets really cute and takes one of the receivers. Then you can get Taylor at the 104. Understand wanting to have 2 quarterbacks. You can even get, given his situation, the fact that he has no starting quarterbacks probably beyond 2021 right now. He's got 1 starting quarterback.
No, I get it. 2. He absolutely needs somebody. So you want to be at that 102.
So you can even go to 102. If Jalen Hurts gets drafted in the first round, he immediately becomes a top 5 pick in super flex leagues because just of opportunity there.
Yeah, you're
even
looking
a guy like Herbert who's going to be a top 10 pick could be starting right away too. You can even go, 2 quarterbacks there.
You're looking 105 or 106 if Hurts goes with any form of draft capital. But yeah, you could go 2 quarterbacks. But either way, regardless of trying to predict who goes where, I'm still on that 102 side with the 104 and one of those backs. I'm leaning heavily there. So there you go. All right.
Hopefully that helps, Darren. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get into what's fueling Beerfield.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what do you got?
I got Toppling Goliath's double dry hop pseudo. This is a super double dry hop version of their base pseudo, which is one of their base beers. More of my thoughts on this later.
All right, so I'm drinking Chocolate Layer Cake Stout from Spiteful Brewing, and what they did here is kind of cool. So they released a 4-pack, but unlike, most 4-packs where it's the same thing, or you might get different variants of the same base beer. I mean, this is different variants of a different base beer, but they actually layer something on top of something else, and it's like sequential. So it starts out chocolate layer cake, and then it's chocolate and vanilla, and then they layer in almond, and then they layer in, I think it's cherry. So it's a 4-pack where they got 4 different beers. They're adding a layer to it each time. This is the base beer. This is just the Chocolate Layer Cake Stout. But I love it when, personally, into an educational standpoint here, real quick, I love it when breweries do this. It's an easy thing to do because you can brew a giant batch, basically, of one base recipe and then add different adjuncts in later on in secondary fermentation to get those different variants. And then you're also not buying a 4-pack of the same thing. You're buying a 4-pack that gives some variety without a lot of extra overhead costs to the brewery. So I love it when breweries do something like this. We're trying the base one today. I'll try the other 3 at some other point.
Yeah, Spiteful does a really good job with their, especially with their Stouts and Porter packs, like the goddamn Pigeon Porter series. They tend to do a good variety with 4 different beers. They do it with their Hostel Harry, which is their
Russian,
their bourbon barrel imperial stouts and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of what Spiteful does.
I am a big fan of Spiteful also. All right, so shit seen on Twitter. So no sports. Do you have the show script pulled up?
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, there are no sports. So what was tweeted out was a graphic, and it said, pick 3 video games from here. So what we're doing in this segment, this is a learn about us segment a little bit and take your mind off of things. So what we're going to do at this segment is we're going to do a quick 3-round draft from these video games listed here.
Oh my God.
So this is not the list that was in that particular picture. There were some things like Golden Tee and whatever swapped out for other things I'm more partial to.
Yes.
So what we're picking from: Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, NFL Blitz, NBA 2K, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Crash Bandicoot, FIFA, SmackDown Know Your Role, because that was the best one, Madden,
Yes,
MLB The Show, 007 GoldenEye. I have MLB The Show in here twice, so we're going to change that one to something else. EA Sports NHL or Mario Kart 64. We're going to change that second the show to the Ocarina of Time.
Ooh.
All right. Dan, I will let you have first pick here, and maybe a quick blurb of why or what that game, why you picked that game.
There's a lot of great choices here, and there's no right answers. There are wrong answers, but there is no like super right answer here because I think a lot of these are worthy of the top pick, or at least be a part of a top 3 pick. There's some games I just don't have any sort of sentiment to. The biggest one though is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and that's my first pick. I grew up,
and I'm getting sniped right out of the gate.
I grew up skateboarding. I was terrible at it, so I didn't skateboard for long. But I grew up on the Tony Hawk games. 1, 2, 3, 4. I kind of skipped 3 because I was still transitioning from a PS1 to PS2. But I got Tony Hawk 4. And Tony Hawk 4 I played out of my fucking mind. And Tony Hawk 2, to this day, I like. Those are my one of my 2 all-time favorite games. I fell out in love with this series when they went to the PSP or the PSP, and they went, kind of a little too much to it. But arguably some of the best soundtracks and some of the soundtracks I grew up on throughout that time. Mike Wright, which I'm assuming is the inspired version of us doing this, posted this, and then had a lot of love with it. But Tony Hawk is a very near dear portion of my heart.
So actually, I did see. I saw this from somebody else, and then I saw Mike posted it, and he got tweeted out by Goldfinger. But I do want to give a shout out to those guys. For everybody that knows or doesn't know or has been around, the fantasy footballers are kind of what gave us the idea to do this. Yep. We kind of started out trying to mimic them too much, and then we branched off into our own thing. But they also have a comedy podcast called The Spitballers, where they do different drafts of different various things. So not only was this Twitter post stolen from something Mike Wright tweeted, this idea is also, shall we say, borrowed from their other show. If you haven't checked it out,
these guys,
it's family friendly and it's hilarious.
Yeah, these guys are massively inspired. It was a lot more. We looked a lot more like the fantasy footballers when Nick was still a part of the show, especially early on. But just meeting those guys and being able to interact with them before, there's a reason why we still really look up to them and what they do.
And borrow things on occasion. All right.
And borrow things on occasion.
So Dan sniped me with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I'm partial and still own the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And actually have recently played through it again. So
I need to so bad, actually.
All right. So for me, again, a lot of good options here. I'm really stuck between 2, but I gotta go with the series that I have played through multiple times. I'm assuming this is the remake 3-pack. I'm gonna go with Crash Bandicoot as my number 1 pick here. There's so much variety to this, depending on which portion of the series you're talking about. You've got Crash Team Racing, you've got the spinoff, which was like I forget what it was called, but it was like their Super Smash Brothers variant. But then you got 1, 2, and 3, and 3 being Crash Bandicoot Warped, especially that one. Played through that a ton as a kid. Spent a lot of summers doing that. My wife and I have played through the remastered copies again, or at least a lot of the remastered copies again. So coming out of the gate, I'm going with Crash Bandicoot as my first pick to bring back some of that nostalgia and some of that side-scrolling fun.
It is a good time. I didn't get to play it as much as a kid. It's a fun little Easter egg, and I think it's in the latest Uncharted game, like the actual, like not like the add-on package to it, but the latest one, you can actually play a very small version of Crash Bandicoot. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was not the latest one, the one before that. I think it was.
There's a 4th one. It was when it's when they had their kid. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the 4th one.
All right, that's another series I'm playing through again. All right, Dan, you're up with your second pick.
Second pick, man, it maybe I'm sniping you again, but I'm not as much as a wrestling fan as you are right now. But growing up, I was fucking huge. Like everything was about SmackDown. The Rock, Stone Cold, Kurt Angle. Fucking Triple H, X-Pac, shut out from St. Paul, Minnesota. SmackDown Know Your Role was in my opinion the pinnacle PlayStation.
Yes, I
wrestling
agree.
Game.
That and Here Comes the Pain, but I think Know Your Role was really the pinnacle. Those were the 2 best ones. SmackDown 1 and SmackDown 2 were good, but Know Your Role and Here Comes the Pain were before the games really got overly complicated and overly complex with the control schemes and everything. Now, 2K19 was still good, but it's not SmackDown.
I haven't played a wrestling game, I think, since I want to say it was since Know Your Role.
Yeah.
I want to say the first game was it because it was the first one on PS2.
Yeah.
And I played 2 and 3 the more of anything. And by play, those are probably the first 2 games I put in over 100 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
On top of like Pro Skater between all of them, because I wasn't as old at that time, but it's there's a lot of create your wrestler and playing through like 50 years of their career mode.
Yeah. All right. So Dan has Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and SmackDown Know Your Role. I have Crash Bandicoot. Now, there's some other good options here. We still got GoldenEye out there, Smash Brothers Brawl, Mario Kart 64, some of the originals. But the thing here is a scenario. We're under quarantine. So I don't have people sitting there to play Smash Brothers Brawl with me or GoldenEye and Mario Kart 64. And two of those games are before the internet really took off. So I got to go with the other one I was debating in the first round. It fell back to me. I'm going to go with The Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time. That's the game that introduced me to the Zelda series. I spent countless hours as a fourth grader on my N64 playing through that one. It's another one that I put back on the Raspberry Pi and have been playing through again. It really was one of the first games to do kind of an open world concept. Not with side quest really or anything like that, but with different things just in between the straight levels. And it's not lost any of its luster over time. It's really held up. It's good storytelling. It was peak of its time. So The Legend of Zelda, The Ocarina of Time is my second pick here.
It took me a while to get to fall in love with RPGs. Something you'll notice by my last pick, I only bought sports games. I felt like that's the best way to get your money's worth as I gotten older and I'd stopped caring as much. But
don't snipe me on a sports game here.
I got one.
I don't think you will.
And it's one that has been I played almost every year up until Madden 2015 was the last one. I played from like Madden 03 to Madden 05. I've probably lost countless days and sleeps because of it. So to the point here, I probably played Madden 03. I played Madden 03 so much. I went and I changed people's attribute settings to all zeros and restarted the entire NFL league with everyone sucking. And then I would replay. I literally spent that much time editing every single player on every single roster, including the free agency pool, and restarted football. That's how much I played Madden 03. It's also the first time it went online, and it was like online packs, roster updates. Madden 03 and Madden 04 has a huge part in my heart.
Yeah, I played a ton of Madden, more so around 2008 through probably 2012 or so, a bunch of tournaments, a bunch of time with friends and stuff, just drinking and playing football. We do tournaments during house parties and things. And my favorite moment was my buddy Jake. Could never beat him. Finally, one day I did, and he damn near threw the controller through his wall. Like, it was glorious. All right, so you didn't snipe my sports game.
Good. I have one fun story before we get to you.
Okay. Go ahead.
So house parties. Speaking of house parties, we did a massive bracket at one of my buddy's birthday parties, and he was going to beat me. And this was in Madden 03. He decided to be nice and just roll like one last play. And I told him that if I picked it off, I wouldn't return it for a touchdown to beat him. I lied. To this day, he's still pissed off at me about it. To this day.
Nice.
It was the Raiders against the Patriots. So fucking
even better.
Payback.
All right, if I'm going for one here, it is probably, in my opinion, the most fun sports game there is to play because it's pretty much straight action. I love what they've done with it later on with the My Career and the ability to sim, and you can get through. I mean, I've already gotten through a whole minor league season really quick. Minor leagues, if you will, but that's EA Sports NHL. The NHL franchise doesn't get as much love as the Madden franchise or the show franchise, but it really is one of the best done, most realistic sports video games that's out there as far as atmosphere, all the little nuances that go into the NHL arenas, from goal horns to goal songs to the cannon and the lightning bolt in Tampa, and I just think that they've done a really, really good job with that, with building that up, and it really is just a fun one to play. I still spend a ton of hours on on NHL. So, there you go. Dan, do you have any honorable mentions you want to toss out there before we give the final results and move on to the news and free agency?
One honorable mention is GoldenEye. Just talk about countless hours of playing with your friends. It is the greatest, in my opinion, multi-shooter game. Like there's like it may not be the greatest, but it's the one that kind of set the world ablaze for it. And just showed how much fun you can piss people off.
Yeah, one of my honorable mentions that's not on this list, but the Tomb Raider series basically, one basically through Revelations, and the remakes too. But one through, I think Revelations was 4. Chronicles. Either way, the PS1 Tomb Raiders were some of the best games growing up. My stepmom and my dad would spend a ton of hours playing them, got me into it. I got super into it from watching them play. Beat Tomb Raider 2 as the first game I beat. And then another honorable mention for me that didn't make the list would be Resident Evil 3, specifically Nemesis. I played through that game about 4 or 5 different times as well. It's definitely in my ring of honor, if you will, for video games.
I would also put Final Fantasy on here. Final Fantasy X. A game I've beaten more times than any other game, and I've probably sunk in 1,000 hours in total.
Yeah,
like Final Fantasy, the entire series is great. And the first one I beat was Final Fantasy VIII, which will always surprise people because I like 7. It's just I played and beat 10 before I even played 7, because I got into RPGs really late in my gaming career. Final Fantasy, as a series, especially now if we're in quarantine, you can play a full game of that, and all of a sudden you have a week's worth of time missed, which is perfect.
You do. All right, so to recap, Dan picked Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, SmackDown Night Roll, and Madden NFL out of the list given. I had Crash Bandicoot, Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, and EA Sports NHL. That being said, fun little exercise. Thank you for listening to us reminisce on video games. Let's go ahead and get into the news. There's a little bit of news to talk about, including some big news today, and then we'll get into free agency. Actually, not a lot of news to talk about, but a couple big news items to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
News.
By the way, this is the 1 week out of the year where we do not lump in free agency and contract signings and trades with the rest of the news. That is literally the entire show after this. So we'll gloss over that for now. Starting off, and it feels like ages ago, given everything that's been going on with the NFL this week, other things notwithstanding. But since we recorded last time, the new CBA has been ratified, which is going to give us a 17-game regular season and an expanded playoff format. So I wanted to take a minute to just talk about the implications to fantasy. What could we see here? And really how to, potentially adjust strategy going forward for this, and what the playoffs are going to mean from an NFL impact.
Exactly. Like, I want to know how they're going to do bye weeks. I actually, I admit through all the chaos that's happened in the last 2 weeks, I haven't read up on all the nuances that have changed with the new CBA being signed. But I want to know how bye weeks are going to play out in terms of when each team's going to get their 2.
They're only doing 1 bye week. It's not 2 bye weeks.
I thought I heard 2.
I'm going to look it up real quick and make sure, but I thought I saw that it was only 1.
If it's 1, then this is bullshit.
But they get larger chunk of revenue sharing, larger percentage.
They do, but a lot of these players will. I mean, it barely passed. Like, it just surprises me that it like, if they do a 17-game season without a second bye week, because again, from the NFL, who wants to be protective of their players, you're gonna add on an extra game. Why not give them an extra week of rest? Why not do one early and then do one mid to late season? It would definitely help for fantasy football too. As for ramifications of that, though, no longer can we say, I guess, fuck week 17. It's probably turned into fuck week 18. with the expanded playoffs and only one team getting a bye week, week 18 actually may become more important as more teams have stuff to play for. It generally happens in at least one of the conferences. The number one seed is figured out before week 18 at this point, would be before week 17 of all's past, but that may change now.
All right.
With only one team getting it.
So here's the details.
Okay.
17-game NFL season, no second bye week. Rosters expand to 55 players instead of 53. Players get a larger chunk of revenue sharing, added benefits to former players, decreased in padded practices in training camp, and obviously the additional playoff team. 17-game season starts in 2021. New playoff format starts this year.
It does. Okay. All right. I've heard other things on when it would actually start. I'm actually excited to see the additional playoff start, because I think that's actually more important than the extra game.
I think
because I think it's gonna. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think from an NFL perspective, the extra playoff game is gonna be a lot of fun. I think that it makes the 1 seed, that much better. It's not gonna be, I get the 1 or a 2, I'm locked into a bye. You're gonna see players play more. With the 17-game regular season, though, from a strategy perspective, you're gonna have to focus on building deeper rosters. You're going to have to get guys you can plug in as installations that aren't such dart throws, or maybe be a little more risky. I don't know. I don't know how you play that one. You might have to just assume that you need to have maybe one more running back on your roster instead, a higher injured position, or you may need to have an extra quarterback on your roster for most of the season, that extra tight end that you wouldn't normally draft because, like you said, people are barely making it through this. But there's also the alternative of weak divisions or divisions that are top heavy, where you're like, oh well, maybe it's not fuck week 17 anymore, it's fuck week 18. Well, maybe it's screw them both, and that's another thing that becomes a real possibility. You got teams right now that are in a position to coast out through week 17. There are going to be scenarios where teams could rest guys potentially for the last 2 weeks of the season if they wanted to.
I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how the actual NFL teams treat this. Like, the biggest thing is it's how your league adjusts to the new rules in terms of, do they just play through week 16? Are they going to add in playing through week 17? It's a new norm playing through week 17 now, and adding and not playing week 18.
I think there's going to be a lot of wait and see.
We don't know, because not only are we getting an extra game, there's more incentive for teams to play their starters, as only the top seed gets a bye week. And now you're adding in a 7th team to each division. More teams have playoff spots to play for. You may see teams resting players, their starters, mid-season more if they get an earlier bye week, and trying to keep them healthy for a playoff push. There's gonna be a lot of unknown. It may not seem like much, just adding an extra game. You just move on to the extra, you just move on a week ahead and play through week 17. Not worry about week 18. But with adding that 7th playoff team with only one bye week now, or with now the one team being rewarded the bye week, I think more teams are going to be playing that final week as playoff positions become more important.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, it's going to go both ways, I think. And I think it's very much going to be, you're going to have seasons where it goes more one way than the other, too. I think it just depends on how well the competitive balance stays across the league. Because one more game, it's more of a chance to distance yourself, too.
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
That being said, it's going to be a lot of wait and see from a fantasy perspective, I think. I don't think anybody's going to... I think the best course from a commissioner perspective, leave it how it is, let it bake leave it how it is in 2021, let it bake for a year, and then decide what you want to do, rather than adjust to this thing immediately. That's how I think you should play it anyway.
I think that's actually smart. Just keep playing through, just like, well, first off, are these sites going to allow us to keep it through week 16? Excuse me.
Yeah, you can stop in 15.
They should be able to. But I agree with you. I I think, I'll try out leagues that will play through week 17. I may even try out free leagues that'll play through week 18 in 2021 and see what the differences are, because it's gonna need to be not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but we're gonna need to see over 4 or 5 year sample to kind of give us an idea on how long league should run for, and just how to kind of set up rosters and what's more important. This may be a bigger change than people see, and it may not be as much, but I'm excited for it, even though I was pretty pissed when it happened. I have kind of warmed up to the idea of, at least for betting purposes, wild card weekend is gonna be fucking awesome.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh my god, 3 games or 6 games instead of 4.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. By the way, send beer to your local fantasy football podcast, because that's another week of grind for them too, and for at least us.
Oh my god,
and we'll say it a million times: the off season's fun, in season sucks.
I mean, if you guys have been listening to us long enough, that we keep kind of figuring out, since Nick has left, we're kind of, trying to figure out where our comfort zone is. We're still going to give you content throughout the weeks. It's going to be a little bit different this year, and we're going to keep playing, playing it by ear.
I think what we figured out towards the end of last year, and really what we did for week 16 last year, probably worked out best.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Nick's been gone for a year. I can't say we're still adjusting to him so much as we're still trying to find a way to make the season.
Well, we're
suck.
finding our own voice.
We're finding a way to make the in-season shit not suck. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I mean, the in-season part sucks.
It does.
All right. Moving away from that, the Rams have released Todd Gurley. They eat over $20 million in cap space. This is before $10 million became fully guaranteed. And
so
he's a free agent.
It's a net gain of -3, or a net gain of $3 million, or net gain of -$3 million from them cutting them.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's reasonings for it, for I guess long term. I'm assuming next year in 2022, but right now it seems like the Rams could be kind of trying to pseudo tank. I'm not really sure.
Well, I don't think they're trying to tank. I mean, you cut Todd Gurley, who was downswing a bit, if you will. And I mean, you still have a couple guys out on the free agency market you can plug in. You do have a deep running back class this season that, some of those guys are not going to be day one guys. So it's going to be interesting. They had no cap flexibility, so they sent Gurley packing, and he's a guy whose usage went down last year. The efficiency went down last year. There are chronic knee problems there. And this is telling, and we'll see what type of deal he gets elsewhere and where he actually lands and what he's going to be when that happens. I will say this, all of the Darrell Henderson sell takes right now, I agree with those. If people are shipping him as a starter, yeah, sell, because I don't believe Darrell Henderson. I didn't even believe when we loved Darrell Henderson that Darrell Henderson was a starter. We thought he was going to replace Malcolm Brown's change of pace rule and have value in that regard, and still do.
And that's where his value is. He's a change of back, or a change of pace satellite back plus. He's got the size to take on a bigger workload than a satellite back would take. I think this is just a full-blown committee. I think they'll either draft somebody a little bit bigger to take the first, couple down yardage type of thing, or they could try to bring in Devonta Freeman or Melvin Gordon. To me, it just doesn't solve whatever problem they have outside of having a cheaper running back on the roster. But why not draft one at that point?
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. The Falcons released Devonta Freeman. That is not necessarily as significant. He struggled to get anything going last year, really behind a team that just struggled to have any form of a running game last year. So, was it the Falcons O-line? Was it Devonta Freeman? He missed all of the year before that. And I say most all, I think it was all but the first half of game 1. So, what does he have left in the tank if he lands someplace, or is he done?
He's 28 years old.
That's not
which
young.
means he's not super sexy for Dynasty. We'll have to see where he lands to see if he gets a type of situation the likes of what Carlos Hyde has had, like with Houston or LaShawn McCoy was supposed to have with Kansas City this year. So it's a wait and see.
He's going to
If you own
Kyle
him in-
Shanahan.
Yeah. If you own him in Dynasty, you should have sold him a while ago.
2 years ago.
I
mean, the problem with Freeman is that you didn't really have a sell window on Freeman. He was still viable, and he got hurt. And then he came back, and it's like, okay, well, Tevin Coleman's not here anymore. He's viable. And then he didn't perform. Like, I would argue that you just haven't had a sell window on Devonta Freeman.
Your sell window is you have to take
something.
Like you have
your
to
sell
sell
window is when
probably-
he lands and catches hype. If he lands someplace good, that's your sell window.
Well, yeah, that's your newest one. I guess in season you could have sold him after he had a couple of weeks, like 3 week stretch where he was an RB1 in terms of during those weeks. So I guess that was your window. But you're right though. He's been battling injuries. The Falcons have kind of fallen, flat on their face. Obviously, he's not really built to be a true bell cow, even though he's been handed that role through a couple years. It was pretty apparent through the massive grind that the Falcons gave him that the wear and tear was going to start to show. It's hard to judge when they sell those type of players because we're excited when we have them, and they're popular buy lows because you feel like you can get them even for a late first that it's worth the risk. It's just I think. Just like we saw with Todd Gurley, running backs are very much a wild card player almost in Dynasty after their first contract because who the fuck knows?
Yeah, and for Freeman, by the way, he basically had 3-4 good weeks throughout the season. Only 2 rushing touchdowns, a couple receiving touchdowns. So yeah, he had basically 2 good weeks that were 6 weeks apart. So he never really strung anything together.
I thought he had a stretch where
no,
weeks 4, 5, and 6 he was an RB2, 2, and 1. I guess.
Well, that's because he had a monster game in week 6.
Week 5 and 6 were your window that's where he scored over half of his touchdowns.
Yeah.
Actually, 3/4 of his touchdowns came in those 2 weeks.
And even then, you would look at it and just say, "Oh, it's touchdowns," because week 5 he only had 70 scrimmage yards.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I agree with you.
Yeah. Anyways,
enough
of that. So non-tenders, by the way, guys that could land someplace that are names: McKissick or J.D. McKissick, Austin Carr, Keith Kirkwood, and I meant those are names. As in, those are names of real people, and that's all the further we're going on that.
Bullshit. These are made up names.
All right, let's hit some free agency.
Free agent friendly.
All right, here's how this is going to work. We're 45 minutes into the show. I'm low on beer. We've got 30 teams to get through. We are going to try to go through this quick. There will be time for analysis later as we do previews. We're going to touch on what each team has done, kind of overall thoughts, maybe throw some buy sells, and move on. Okay?
Okay.
You up for it?
Okay.
It's like the fastest bar talk ever. All right, in ABC order, we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. They've transition tagged Kenyon Drake, which means they haven't re-signed him, but they have the ability to match anything that's given to him, essentially. They've re-signed Larry Fitzgerald. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins, which was an absolute steal.
Yep.
They got Hopkins in the Texans' 4th for David Johnson, as well as a 2020 second-round pick, 2021 4th-rounder. So that's a steal. We'll focus on Johnson to the Texans later. The other side of the ball, they got Devon Kennard. They got Jordan Phillips. And
I wouldn't even worry
Campbell.
about the defense.
So I'm going to mention it, and that's all we're going to talk about it, because there are some big defenders that, hey, you don't want to come in and be like, hey, like the Eagles can't play corner anymore when they traded for Darius Slay, So that's the only reason I'm going to mention that. We're not going to spend time on that, though. Primary focus on the offense, in particular here, bringing Kenyon Drake back and Larry Fitzgerald. Oh wait,
Drake's-
DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, he's there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, he's there too. Yeah. Just a guy. Drake's probably a back in RB1 within this offense. Like there's like he may be, approaching potential mid just with the amount of upside that this offense is going to bring now.
Yeah.
And touches.
So we got to break down the receiving core though. Outside of Kenyon Drake, you've got a receiving core now that's Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, and Christian Kirk, which is great for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is going to be in the discussion for top 3 quarterback this year.
He's going to be overdrafted, and I'll redraft. I will not own. Sadly, I will not own any Kyler Murray.
I might actually buy the hype on him just because he's got the rushing floor too, with all of the, he was the QB7 in his rookie year, mostly because he can run a football. And now you
I'll
put
caution
receiving weapons
aside
around
to
him.
what
So
Cleveland just did. Even though I think Kyler's a higher floor than Baker, no matter what. I'll caution to what we saw from Cleveland last year.
and better coaching. So, I mean, look, I was nervous about Kingsbury coming in last year, but he showed that the offense is going to run a ton of plays, and I think that matters when it comes to fantasy too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I love Murray. Like he's a riser. I don't reach for quarterbacks in redraft leagues. Like I don't. And so, while I'll be sad to miss him because I love Kyler Murray, I just won't own him. It's the same way for Hopkins. Receivers.
if
that
he goes
change
ahead
teams.
around 6, I'm out. If he's there in round 6, I'll probably
I don't
look at
think-
it.
I think you're looking at what Baker. I think you're looking at a mixture of what Watson was in 18 and what Baker was last year.
And I may, since I'm in so many damn leagues, I may take him in one anyway, just to say
That's
that I own
true.
a share.
You're right.
So
You're right. I want one.
I want a
best
share
ball.
because I want to
for
root
sure.
for him and I want to root for this team.
That's fair.
Now, they did nothing to address the offensive line here. That's a negative, but Kyler's mobile. The
Yep.
big issue here, I think, is really the impact on the wide receivers.
Yep.
That's 3 guys that demand targets. And
I think this could ultimately kill
Fitz.
Fitzgerald's value. I can argue Kurt's value. Well, his ceiling took a hit.
I
did
could
it
still
go down that much?
No, I think it's about where it is, though. It's not that it went down that much. It's, you expect an ascent for a wide receiver in their first 3 years, and I think it did cap it. I think you've got to cap him in that wide receiver 2 area again, and I almost feel like with these 2 here and Kenyon Drake, you've kind of got to drop Hopkins back a little bit from where he was when he was the only show in town. You have to drop Hopkins back into kind of that mid-tier wide receiver 1 instead of from the elite tier, just because he's going to a team where he's not going to be the only mouth to feed.
Well, I mean, just with that, Kurt at a 24.5% target share, Fitz at a 20.6. Hopkins is not going to be a top 5 receiver in target share unless injuries come creeping again for Arizona. He played with Will Fuller, always hurt. He played with QT, who ended up getting benched. He played with Kenny Stills, who was traded and then got hurt. There's always guys behind.
His running backs were Carlos Hyde and Lamar Miller that didn't necessarily get super involved in the passing game, which is not Kenyon Drake. So.
And there's one point that doesn't get talked about enough is that the chemistry between Watson and Hopkins was insane. You don't have that with Murray. Hopkins plays an arid offense. He's going to have a good floor, but there's going to be times where you're going to see some missed throws. You're going to see some missed timing routes, especially early on in the season. I don't hate Hopkins next year. I think a lot of people are going to be on the same vibe as we are, but so I think that you can make CB, or you may be able to get him for, of equal value, but you can't have Hopkins, I don't think, as a top 5 receiver this year.
No, I think
can.
he's, in redraft, you're talking 2nd round for him instead of what was surefire first.
Yeah, and he's 27, 28 years old, so he's in the good part. Like, this is a great move. It's a great move for Arizona. NFL move. In Dynasty,
they're going to be
take
fun.
what it is.
I'd still like to see him address the offensive line. That was a real weakness for him. I'd still like to see him get some pass rush going. But yeah, overall, I think that the Cardinals' offense is set. They look good.
It's going to be fun. I mean, this is what we're probably hoping Cleveland was this last year, is what we'll get from Arizona. Spread air raid offense. Murray's a lot more mobile than Baker. Kenyon Drake thrived in a spread, in the spread scheme. So, points galore. They were top 3 in pace last year. Don't expect that to change.
Yep.
We'll see what happens in year 2, Kyler Murray, though.
All right, moving on to the Falcons. So they've gotten one offensive acquisition, and it's basically to replace the departed Austin Hooper. They made a trade for Hayden Hurst with the Ravens, along with the 2024 round pick in exchange for a second and a fifth rounder. So first off, good on the Ravens for getting a second round back on a guy that they took at the end of the first. Now, and that really hadn't done a whole lot. Defensive wise, Dante Fowler and Tyler Davidson really don't move the needle on anything there. So they still have some needs, especially at cornerback and linebacker. They have Ito Smith right now as their top running back, so they have a huge need there. So I guess the only thing really to talk about here, because it sounds like we're not going to be talking about the running back until they sign somebody or draft somebody, so jury's out there, is does Hayden Hurst come in here and produce similar to what Austin Hooper did, or does this free up a ton for Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, Hurst is not Hooper. Hurst was, I think he's still a good receiving tight end, and I think he'll absorb some of the targets. Hooper was a 97 target tight end in this offense, and that's with some games missed from I think both Jones and Ridley. This is a big ups to Ridley. This is a big ups to
and Hooper missed games.
Yeah. So I don't think Hurst is going to just absorb the 97 targets that Hooper got. I think Hurst will be a streaming tight end who will have some productive weeks, especially if injuries occur. But I wasn't high on Hurst when he came in with the Ravens. I absolutely hated the pick. When they drafted him, he'll get overdrafted. I think people will see what Hooper was able to produce this past year with with the Falcons, and they'll think to translate that. He is adjusting to a new team, a new scheme, a new offense, with all new players, and which is completely different to what Baltimore did. So who knows what we're going to get from Hurst this year?
I think you get Hooper light to a degree. Look, we know he's athletic. That's part of why Baltimore went for it. We liked Mark Andrews more watching the tape. He's had a couple years in the NFL. I don't think you get Austin Hooper type of production. You mentioned streamer, and I think that's right in the sense of, tight ends 6 through 12 are technically streamers in most years.
So 6 through 16. I think he'll end up being a back
I think he's going to end up being a tight end 1
or a high 2, depending on his own health, because he's not a pitcher model for health either. So
I think he ends up being a tight end 1. I don't think you see the 87 targets. I think that you probably shave about 20 off of that plus whatever games Hooper missed. I think that ends up more at Ridley if they draft a pass catching running back. So I think that there is a booster Calvin Ridley here. But I think Hayden Hurst did at least put himself in draftable tight end range depending on what the Falcons schedule looks like.
I'm not going to draft him. For me is that I don't expect production from a consistent basis.
Well, you also said you project him to go high though too.
Yeah, I think people will. It depends how people feel about the situation.
See, I'm not projecting the overdraft right now, which is why I say I'll probably take him.
No, that's fair.
So, all right, Baltimore Ravens. We can pretty much skip this. They did absolutely nothing on offense, nor did they. Well, they still have a need at wide receiver, I think. If you ask me,
they traded away some targets that was lost from Hurst that should go to all the market.
Right. They should go all to Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews gets a huge boost from that. But I still want to see the Ravens do something to address wide receiver a bit, because you can't just rely on. Well, they did last year and it worked out okay, but eventually something's got to give with that. You can't just throw to tight ends and running backs, even though they made it work. The league adjusts.
I'll be interested to see how they adjust this because I can see them doubling down on running back and getting maybe more of a pass catcher guy bigger than what Justice Hill is.
They could
and just fucking run the football, triple options style, and then just let Jackson do his thing and bring in some more athletic outside talent to kind of be your quote unquote red zone guys alongside Mark Andrews.
We'll see. But anyway, they did nothing. It's all speculation at this point. They did on defense, though, acquire Calais Campbell. Michael Brockers is there. Matt Judon, Matt Skura, also has been original round tendered the center. So, basically they just shored up the defense again, which
is what they needed to do
for the Ravens.
Yep.
All right, the Buffalo Bills. They made a trade for Stephon Diggs. He was acquired from the Vikings on the 2027th round pick, going to the Bills in exchange for a 2021, a 5th, a 6th, and a 2021 4th. So good return for the Vikings. Stephon Diggs in Buffalo with John Brown. Let's break that one down.
Not much has changed for Diggs. He's still the alpha. He didn't change that role. Went from alpha for Minnesota to alpha with Buffalo. Buffalo's a better defense, better offensive line.
Better
It's
running
going to be
game.
the favorite to win. It's going to be a favorite to win their division now. With how bad the AFC East now looks again. Josh Allen is not as accurate of a passer as Kirk Cousins. He has a better deep arm in terms of throwing the football far. How that'll translate to actual on target accuracy remains to be seen. I don't hate the trade for both teams. I think Buffalo made their all-in move. They did recognize that this is their division with Brady gone. With the best team on paper, there's been rumors about them bringing in Melvin Gordon, so they're going all in. And I think Diggs will complement that. He's a fantastic contested catch receiver in terms of NFL value. For dynasty, or for fantasy, I'm staying away. 1,000%.
For fantasy?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that Diggs is still going to slide into he'll be overdrafted. And the thing is that it's going to fade John Brown. And Diggs is probably not going to be, any different than he was in Minnesota, right? I mean, you're talking, I don't think it's a big upgrade for him getting away from Thielen in this sense.
No.
I think that he's pretty much going to have the same type of ceiling, which is in that teens range. So,
I mean, he didn't have Thielen for most of the season last year, and he can play with the team playing for the playoffs like what Buffalo did last year. Having a quarterback on a team that's more run first. Buffalo will still probably be more of a run first team. So while Diggs got his wish to be traded from Minnesota, he went to a team that's almost the same mold, but just better off right now because they still have all their players, all their core pieces. So,
other moves for the Bills: Mario Addison agreed to terms on a 3-year deal. Vernon Butler, 2-year deal. Quentin Jefferson, Josh Norman. So mostly just shored up the defense again.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the Panthers. Big one here is Teddy Bridgewater, 3 years, $63 million. $33 million fully guaranteed. That is essentially a bridge quarterback deal.
It's great because I actually really like this move for fantasy purposes. Teddy Bridgewater was good in deep passes this year for the Saints. Obviously you can go online. That's been the big talking point is that it won't hurt. Curtis Samuel, but Bridgewater isn't a deep ball passer. He makes it stay in the short to intermediate range. You have two of the best yak receivers, super speed hybrid type of guys, and more in Samuel. You still have obviously CMC. We love Ian
this team
Thomas.
is basically
I like
built
this
for
move.
Teddy Bridgewater fit wise.
Yeah, I absolutely love this move.
Intermediate passing game with guys that can get yards after the catch. He's a mobile quarterback, so they don't have to completely get away from that. And they'll ship Cam Newton out, and I think that Bridgewater can beat out Will Grier and Kyle Allen. It's a bridge deal, so it's a low risk deal for the Panthers, with $33 million fully guaranteed. But if I had to look at it, I'd imagine that's pretty front loaded. So, look, it's a great deal for them. They'll ship Cam Newton out of town, and Bridgewater's fantasy relevant, and I don't think you lose a whole lot in CMC CMC was productive with freaking Kyle Allen all season. So you don't lose anything in CMC. Moore. You don't lose anything in DJ Moore. Might be a little bit better for him. Kyle Allen also re-signed, by the way. He'll be insurance, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he'll be their backup because Will Grier, even though he didn't have much of a chance, he didn't show much last year.
Yeah. All right, that's it there. We won't even talk about the defensive players because there's nobody notable. The Bears,
or Seth Roberts.
Right. The Bears, they acquired Nick Foles for a 4th-round pick. So we talked a couple weeks ago about what I would like to see the Bears give up for an Andy Dalton or Nick Foles. This is it right here. 4th round pick. And it was their compensatory one. It was the one that they were gifted. It wasn't even their own. So I'm okay with the compensation going the other way. The contract's been restructured, so it's a little bit more team friendly. I am okay with Nick Foles coming in here to push Mitch Trubisky. Not a be-all, end-all answer. This is not going to solve the problems for the Bears. It makes the quarterback situation murky. I'm not pissed off about it because of the compensation going the other way. As far as fantasy implications, I honestly think that there are none.
I mean, it's better. I mean, Foles is a better passer than Trubisky. He's of course not as athletic. Cannot give you the same type of production on the ground. But through the 3 years I watched Trubisky play, I can honestly say Foles is better for his receivers. Shout out to Jeff or shout out to Robinson. This may be his best quarterback he's played with. Sorry, Blake Bortles. But true. But Bears have
the Bears aren't the Eagles,
still.
Which means Nick Foles is trash. So
I mean, he'll dominate the Vikings for 2
not
games
forget.
this year, so you know that.
The Bears aren't the Eagles, so Nick Foles is trash. Now, slight upgrade passing wise over Trubisky, not as mobile. Again, it's a perfect push deal. I think they're in the same tier. Jimmy Graham, 2 year, $16 million. Good if Foles starts, I guess, because Foles likes tight ends, but I don't agree with that deal. Not a fan of that move.
It's dumb. There's no positive to signing Jimmy Graham. Well, what, you're gonna push Adam Shaheen and Brock, whatever, and
Trey Burton.
Trey Burton will probably get released.
Yeah. So I don't know. No benefit there, and I think there's no benefit to the Bears bringing in an older tight end at this point. I mean, Shaheen didn't.
They have like 12 on roster right now.
Yeah. Well, Shaheen didn't pan out. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Nick Foles, like I said, not moving the needle a whole lot. Robert Quinn, that was a good signing. $70 million, $30 million guaranteed. Danny Trevathan re-signed, also a good signing. So the defense is still going to be good.
Yeah. The defense, I have no concerns of unless the offense shits the bed again.
Robert Quinn's an upgrade as a pass rusher over Leonard Floyd. So I'm okay with this.
Yeah, easily.
All right, the Bengals. They also have not done anything. They franchise tagged AJ Green. We've talked about that at length on various other episodes here. Other than that, Trey Wayne's most notable cornerback signing. And
they took our number 2 and our number 3 defensive backs.
Wayne's and Alexander.
Maybe in the Vikings.
Yeah.
Both Alexander and Wayne's.
So both upgrades for the Bengals there. All right, the Browns. They've done some stuff. So they got Austin Hooper, which is probably their biggest signing. He agreed to terms with them, 4 years, $44 million, $23 million guaranteed. That's all in the first 2 years. The highest paid tight end. And this is bad news for Njoku.
Yep.
You could end up with an Ebron Doyle type of split here. They're both that type of player, with Njoku being very athletic and useful down by the red zone, whereas Hooper's kind of realistically and always been more of an in-between-the-20s guy. I think you have to fade Hooper a little bit out of that elite tier where he was back to that second tier tight ends just because of Njoku's presence. And the presence of the running game.
I like what the Browns have done so far. Jack Conklin is a fantastic signing to help this offensive line.
And they needed help.
And they absolutely needed it. There's absolutely no pressure for them this year, so I expect them to rebound nicely. The second round tender on Kareem Hunt's interesting because I could totally see a team who needs a running back who's got playoff aspirations being dumb enough to do something like that.
And that's good for the Browns if they do, and if they don't, then they keep Kareem Hunt. So
Hunt, if Hunt stays, I do feel like you have to slightly downgrade
Chubb
a little bit. Chubb was the RB14 during the time Hunt played with them for those 8 weeks, and Hunt was very much relevant through that span, especially if the rumors are true, if they end up trading one of Landry and or Beckham.
Right. So I think you see more of a split there. I think you're absolutely right about that. Also, not to be lost, they signed they traded for Andy Janovich, who's a fullback. So shows that they want to run the football. And also not to be lost in this, 3 years, $18 million for Case Keenum is Baker Mayfield insurance. And we've seen what Case Keenum can do when you put a competent team around him. When he was with the Vikings, and a team that has a running game and some talent at the receiver positions and some talent at the tight end position. If Baker flounders, don't be surprised if you see Case Keenum come in and try to save the ship.
He could be. I think Baker is going to come out and surprise the shit out of people this year. But I'm also
came out and surprised the shit out of people last year too.
Yeah, well, didn't work out.
You are a truther, though.
I am a truther.
All right, Dallas Cowboys. They re-signed Amari Cooper, 5-year, $100 million. Blake Jarwin is back in at tight end. Dak Prescott, exclusive rights franchise tag. Sean Lee is re-signing for a year. Kai Forbath. The biggest thing about the Cowboys to note is that despite everything that could have changed, nothing's going to change. Is at this point. So I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of time on the Cooper deal other than to say good job for getting it done. And
yeah,
because
I like Blake Jarwin. I like Blake Jarwin for fantasy this year.
I do too without Witten there, but
super athletic. He's going to be one of those late round tight ends that'll probably flash.
Yeah, he's not new to the team though, so there's not a whole lot to break down.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, for sure. I'm spending a lot of time on it. I'm just saying, Blake Jarwin as your double digit round tight end savior.
Yep. All right, Denver Broncos. They acquired AJ Boye, who hasn't been great since Denver. Graham Glasgow is a guard, which will help out the running game. That's it. Glasgow's decent. Jarrell Casey, defensive lineman. But it's all defense for the Lions too, so we won't spend a lot of time here. Jimmy Collins is reunited with Matt Patricia. Chase Daniels is going to be the new backup.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was a free agent.
Off the couch.
Yeah, and
signed off the couch.
And Desmond Trufant, 2 years, $21 million, ahead of the Darius Slade trade.
Yep.
So
yep,
does not move the needle on them at all for me.
Nope.
Green Bay Packers, not anything here that moves the needle either. Christian Kirksey comes in at linebacker. That's after they lost Blake Martinez, so that's their replacement there. So if you're playing an IDP, Kirksey is still relevant. Mercedes Lewis doesn't do anything. Rick Wagner doesn't do anything for me. The Texans, Randall Cobb, 3 years, $27 million, 18.
That's their Hopkins replacement.
Yeah, that's got to be. I mean, they don't have anybody else, so Randall Cobb should get a ton of targets there.
Well,
that's ugly. We'll look at this after the draft.
I don't want to,
because I feel like everything should move on this. If we talk about it now, it's just not going to be the same in a month.
David Johnson.
Yeah, David Johnson's what we do need to talk about. Acquired in a trade with the Cardinals along with a 2020 second round pick and a 4th rounder in exchange for DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th rounder. He'll get a chance, and I don't know how good it's going to be.
He's coming off injuries. Hasn't been productive since 2016.
He's actually
28 years old.
Only had one productive year in 2016, and that was it.
Yeah, he's had one massive productive year. 15 looked, obviously rookie season looked really good. Volume should be there for him. Should be. Stays healthy. He was decent when he was healthy last year, but different offense. Should get it. It depends because Watson utilizes his receiving back more, but Johnson isn't the same running back as of 3 year 4 years ago. At this point. So I don't know what you can expect to get from him. I think he'll get overdrafted. Somebody will fall in love with the potential volume. See Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, there's going to be something there again.
He's probably a floor RB2 with maybe slightly better touchdown upside.
Yeah,
than what Bell was last year.
All right, the Colts, and good news for T.Y. Hilton. Phillip Rivers agreed to a 1-year deal. Paris Campbell's interesting, but we basically know what Rivers does as far as wide receivers go. T.Y. Hilton will be the alpha there. I'd expect Jack Doyle to get some work here with Phillip Rivers there, and it's okay for the running game. I think it's good news overall for the offense. They also re-signed Anthony Costanzo, so they kept the offensive line pretty much intact for Phillip Rivers, who should have protection, should be able to have a decent year. And we know what Phillip Rivers is, and I don't think there's a fall off going to the Colts, and I think it's actually better for some of the pieces there than what Brissett was.
I I won't get much into this until after the draft, until to see what other ancillary pieces they bring in on offense.
Yep. All right, the Jaguars have done nothing.
All defense and one line.
Yeah, franchise tag
They're
on
in-
Ngakoue. And after the
She'll
Chiefs,
probably
will do
trade. They're in trade mode.
Yeah.
Or tank mode, probably.
Yeah. Chiefs, not a whole lot there. Chad Henne re-signed. Damian Williams had his option picked up. More on them after the draft. And before we get to the Raiders, let's go ahead and do a beer review.
Yep.
I think that's about halfway, maybe a little more.
Beer review.
All right. What'd you think of your beer? Because I don't
Double
remember
dry
what it
hop Sudosu from Toppling Goliath. They basically just did extra double dry hops and citra hops to make it more juice forward. More so obviously less on the bitter end when you double dry hops. You forgo the bitterness and you bring out all the juice aromas and everything else. Citra generally will bring out a bright tropical mango grapefruit type of fruit to it. I absolutely love this beer. I'll be honest, I just had to grab one from the fridge as work has been frantic, so I didn't get to really spend much time to think about what beer I want on the show. If you haven't had a chance to try at least any Toppling Goliath, I strongly recommend to go out there, get Sudosu, and then get yourself an opportunity to get things like dry hop Sudosu, all the single hop series they do with that. And then, things like King Su and then some of their double IPAs. Toppling does a fantastic work in the IPA games.
All right, I had a chocolate layer cake from Spiteful. That was it. Overall it's a solid stout. It doesn't have quite the body a lot of stouts do. It's not super thick. It's got a nice roastiness to it. The more it heats up, the more the chocolate comes through on it. A little bit more hopped than I think what a lot of stouts are. But overall it was pretty good. And because the base of it's light, it makes me think that, or a bit lighter with the chocolate really poking through, it makes me think those other stouts that they added something else to are really going to show off some of those additional flavors better, because the base stout isn't overpowering in and of itself. It's not what I would classify as bold. It's a very solid sweet stout, but it definitely lends to other flavors being added to it, and I'm excited to take that journey.
Nice.
All right, moving on to the Raiders, who did a lot of things I like on defense, actually. They brought in Eli Apple, who actually wasn't a laughingstock with the Saints. He was passable. They brought in Jeff Heath, who's been very, very solid for the Cowboys. They brought in Nick Kwiatkowski from the Bears, who filled in very, very admirably for Danny Trevathan, a great linebacker. They bring in Corey Littleton, who's been good. Signed Carl Nassib. So the Raiders on defense, I think, have done a lot to improve there. And not to be lost in that, though, they also brought in Marcus Mariota as Derek Carr insurance. His car insurance. He works for Geico. And Jason Witten, who I don't think is a threat at all to Darren Waller's targets. So
a plethora of tight ends on that roster.
Yeah. So there you go. Mariota's Derek Carr insurance in case Carr's a problem again. Other than that, most of the changes for the Raiders are on defense. So just recognize that they are improved there.
Yeah. I mean, Mariota will do what Tannehill did to him.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. I
guess potentially.
So as for the Chargers, Austin Eckler, 4 years, $24.5 million. We talked about that a couple weeks ago when he actually signed it. Hunter Henry, franchise tagged. Tyrod Taylor, really the Chargers' biggest subtraction here is Phillip Rivers. That's going to be what changes it. Tyrod Taylor's came in. They said they're not signing a veteran quarterback. Did not say anything about drafting them. We know those plans change. But if you missed it, go back an hour and a half where we talk about Keenan Allen. Because that was basically what this matters for. Oh, Mike Williams. Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, by the way, are in dire straits here with Tyrod Taylor under center.
The whole offense, the whole passing offense could be in dire straits.
It's true.
Like it's going to be You hope the defense can, I don't know.
Do something.
The secondary could be extremely good if they all stay healthy, though.
Yeah.
God, they bring in Chris Harris, who's notably had a down year last year. Still one of the best, corners in football.
No, they
Or at
did
least
sign Chris
was one.
Harris. How did I miss that? All right, Los Angeles Rams, Leonard Floyd, okay pass rusher there. They released Clay Matthews. I think Floyd's at least an upgrade over the aging corpse of Clay Matthews.
Yeah.
Other than that, Andrew Whitworth re-signed. For the Dolphins, I don't even know what they're doing. All right.
Spending a lot of money because they have a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, here we go. Eric Flowers, 3 years, $30 million, $20 million guaranteed. He wasn't quite the turnstile, but he's definitely not what you're looking for as a stalwart out there. Jordan Howard, 2 years and $10 million. At least they'll have some semblance of a running game, or at least until they draft somebody. So he should be considered the starter right now. Or sign somebody else. I mean, he's worlds better than Kalen Ballage is. We'll put it that way. Byron Jones, 5 years, $82 million. So they did improve at cornerback. They actually have a really good cornerback tandem with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Ked Karras, offensive line. Shaq Lawson, an edge. Emmanuel Agba.
Oh, shit.
What? And Kyle Van Noy. Are you good over there?
Technical difficulties. I can't hear a thing right now.
That ain't good. Kind of got to be able.
Headset.
Kind of got to be able to hear.
Try talking.
Okay. I'm still talking. Welcome to a live troubleshooting session on Beerfield Fantasy Football. Dan is trying to plug a headset in at the moment.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Can you not hear me?
I think my headset finally went out.
Uh-oh. Are there any other headphones in the house?
What's that?
Oh, you can't hear me.
Hold on, let me see if I can find some more.
Dan is going to try to find more headphones. I'm going to get a beer, and I will put some... Actually,
I'm trying to find a sweet spot here.
Oh, good Lord.
Just kind of hold it and go through the rest of the show.
Dan is still fumbling around with his headset. I'm going to keep going, I guess. So Jordan Howard should be considered the starter there. A lot of rushing upside added by the Miami Dolphins. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. Dan Bailey is back for reasons. CJ Ham is back. Other than that, not a ton of changes there. They really could use a replacement for Stephon Diggs, as they didn't have much behind him and Adam Thielen. But, overall, offense should pretty much be the same. If they don't do anything, then you do have Irv Smith, who stands to see an increase in targets from the absence of Stephon Diggs. The New England Patriots, they lost Tom.
I think I'm good now.
Oh, you think you're good now?
Yep. We're fine. We're running it now.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're on the Patriots now because I decided to just keep going. So what you missed was the Vikings and Dan Bailey and some more end-arounds and Jordan Howard and the Dolphins. Demir Bird to the Patriots, their biggest addition was a subtraction. We'll get to that in a minute. For the Saints, they re-signed Drew Brees, first-round tender on Taysom Hill, which ensures he's not going anywhere. And that is it. So nothing changes there. For the Giants, Levine Toilolo is primarily a blocking tight end. That doesn't hurt Evan Ingram at all. Colt McCoy comes in to be the backup, and not a whole lot else.
Nope, not at all.
The Jets, they have Connor McGovern, 3-year deal. George Fant, so you got a couple linemen coming in as they try to address that. The Eagles, their biggest move was a trade for Darius Slay. They did re-sign Nate Sudfeld, so he'll start the 3 games a year that Wentz misses. Darius Slay, though, coming over does improve that secondary. It's basically for a 3rd and a 5th rounder. So they also did re-sign Jalen Mills, who previously was their best player in that secondary, partnered with Cravon LeBlanc, who can be a pretty good slot corner. So Eagles doing some things there. Derek Watt will join his brother in Pittsburgh as a fullback. For the 49ers, nothing. The Seahawks, Jacob Hollister's going over there. That really doesn't do a whole lot. Greg Olsen, 1 year, $7 million. Do you think that does anything to the hype train that was Will Dissly? Or do you think?
Well, I mean, it's going to take Dissly probably a little bit longer. I mean, it depends on his recovery. This is probably just it's going to kill him. I won't say it'll kill him, but it'll definitely hurt him.
Yeah,
for this season.
And that's assuming Olsen produces, but he did produce at least at streamer level when he got back with Carolina. So I think that he'll make a run for a title with Seattle and probably call it a career. So long-term outlook on Dissly is still good. But it'll be Greg Olsen unless something happens to one of them. You could even see some split there.
I agree.
Tom Brady to the Bucs. This is probably the last big thing we have to break down, I think.
It is. It's probably the only thing.
I hate it.
Honestly.
I'll be honest with you. I hate it. I'm going to give my take. You give your take, and we'll move on. I hate the Tom Brady to the Bucs thing. I do not think he has the arm strength to support Godwin or Evans. I don't think he's that type of passer anymore. I think that his numbers have been in decline the last several years. He does not have the running game that he had in New England. He does not have the defense that he had in New England. He damn sure doesn't have the offensive line that he had in New England. For a guy that is not mobile and not mobile at all, I think this is a disaster waiting to happen. Tom Brady has had a great career, but you've got to take it for what it is. He had a good line in New England. He had a good running game in New England. He had a good defense in New England, especially the last couple of years, to where he didn't really have to put the team on his back and carry them. For that team to be competitive, and yes, the 30 interceptions, Winston still had to throw for 5,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Those are numbers we haven't seen from Brady in a long time, and definitely not over the last 3 years or so. I don't know if he's capable of putting those up again at the age of 43, and I don't know that he's capable of, maybe he'll support Godwin, I guess, because he could support Julian Edelman. But, for Evans, I don't know that necessarily works out for him. It kills Perriman. Maybe they try to make it more familiar for him with 2 tight end sets with Brayton Howard. But he's a long time removed from having Hernandez and Gronk. It's going to be interesting, but I think it's a net bad thing for the Bucs and Brady.
You have to kill the narrative that, the tight ends are going to thrive with Brady. It's been 2 tight ends. Been at least a few years since we've seen that, and Gronk is Gronk, the greatest tight end we may have ever seen. I still think Brady can make every throw, but you're right there. It's gonna be a poor offensive line, still a poor defense. Bruce Arians is gonna have to adjust how he runs. At least call some of these plays in terms of where he's sending these receivers. I don't think Mike Williams is dead Mike Evans is dead in the water, but he probably isn't worth what he's.
I think he's a fade.
Paid. He's a fade. I think, to be quite honest, all these receivers are probably fades. Even guys like Godwin, even though he fits better, he fits the schema variants, and he fits the type of receiver Brady likes. There's still a chemistry thing that we have to see. Who's going to be the guy that steps up in camp? Hard to say where we're at now with it because we haven't seen them throw the football to each other yet. The fact that OTAs could get postponed, if not already, already cut. The fact that training camp could get, could get postponed with everything. this could be a disaster in the making. There's going to be people out there that are going to buy it. Although there's people, there's experts who think this is going to be like a top 5, type of offense. We're a lot more tepid on it. I'm not buying any sort of Brady, and I probably won't be trying to reach up and take any of these guys there. I love Chris Godwin, but this whole offense is in such a unknown right now with you moving from a lot more live arm in Winston to a 42-year-old quarterback who may or may not still have it.
Yeah, all right. I'm Godwin over Evans. I think that's the one thing I could say for
Yes.
certain. Looking at it on
Yep,
paper
yep.
right now, I am Godwin over Evans.
I agree.
Titans didn't change anything. They got the band back together. They're bringing in Ryan Tannehill on a 4-year, $118 million contract, so they're bringing him back, $62 million guaranteed, and franchise tagging Derrick Henry. So look for A.J. Brown next season, though, to continue to ascend. And for the Washington Redskins, they signed J.D. McKissick.
Okay.
Most notable move. I guess
Yeah.
Kendall Fuller away from the Chiefs.
And some offensive line depth.
Yeah. Well, Scherf was
Which
already
is-
there. He got franchise tagged. He's been but Schweitzer?
Bless you.
Thanks. All right, that's all we got for you. Little quick run through the free agency class. Again, as we get after post-draft, we'll run through the draft class much of the same way, and then we'll actually get to a point where we can break down teams and take a more holistic look at things, give more of a fantasy outlook on things. Right now the needle moves, and the biggest thing is buy-sell windows at this point in time, because those are going to open and close throughout the offseason. You just got a sell window on Darrell Henderson, I think. And there's not really anybody yet that's fallen that I'm looking at and just saying, yeah, they're a buy. DeAndre Hopkins was a big move. Stephon Diggs was a big move, but their situations both actually got worse. Kyler Murray, hype's already going to be through the roof, so you can't really buy him, but I don't think it's a sell because I think it's very obtainable hype. And, I guess if you got somebody that's freaking out because Tom Brady at the Bucs, you could maybe look at a Mike Evans sell. But, overall, I don't really think we had any big buy or sell windows open. Dan, do you agree with that? Disagree with that? I mean, there's a couple, but I don't think there's anything major that's just glaring as a buy or sell at the moment that came out of free agency.
No, I mean, you just have to, I think, be aware that, guys like Hopkins and Diggs will likely not, produce what you think they will. And just
That's not
regression from before.
Yeah, it's not to say they won't still be viable. It's not to say they're not worth holding
sure.
on to. They're not still going to be startable pieces in 2 or 3 wide receiver sets.
They're just in different situations.
Right, and Hopkins isn't going to be that elite anymore. I think that his situation went down and Diggs probably just stayed level, which I think a lot of people if Diggs left would have hoped that he went to a better situation. So that's all we got for you. Next week we'll have a fun one. We'll be here with Matt Hicks, I believe. So we're gonna do a little pre-draft chatter, do an interview style with Matt. He's a friend of the show from the Fantasy Fanalist. He's done a ton of writing, a ton of draft analysis. He's actually, I think this year, surpassed us in the amount of draft analysis he's done because he's
easily
really stepped his game up, and we've kind of stepped ours back. So I'm excited to have him on, excited to interview him, excited to talk to him again because, let's be honest, it's just a fun time anytime we get Matt on the show. So it's going to be good. Social media, we actually got through that really good. Social media, Beerfield FF. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's. Send Dan a pair of headphones so we don't have an awkward pause in the middle of the show next time at Theory BFF with 2 F's.
Oops.
And we will catch you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye. The outro and then the image.